Hi, it's been a minute since I posted in general, but this isn't about some Pokemon Showdown gameplay at all. This is to talk about the closest thing we're going to get to our official Pokemon Showdown. Pokemon Champions. But everyone has talked already about Pokemon Champions. There have been praises and criticizes. You only getting one box of Pokemon for free, the possibly pay to win, battle pass, and so the list goes on. The thing is I am not here to talk about this. I am here to make a video on Pokemon BGC on general, archetypes, team building, roles of Pokemon, everything. With examples of the Mega Evolution era and maybe giving new ideas on how new Pokemon and new Megas can enter and dominate the board, maybe? I'm sure Mega Phalanx has something to do. I love Mega Phalanx, he's so cute. But first, we can't be saying words like archetypes and BGC if people don't know anything and are interested in joining this world. We're going to approach simple concepts to later on explain different archetypes, different everything. What is BGC? Pokemon BGC is the official format for competitive Pokemon battles. BGC stands for Video Game Championship. It consists of combats of doubles, with each player bringing only 4 Pokemon of the 6 of their team, mostly to the best of 3, ignoring the Grand Challenge, which is best of 1. The first theme that we are going to approach in this video is what makes a Pokemon, right? Well, the answer is simple. There are 4 things that make a Pokemon. 1 or 2 types, a move pool, its stats, and its ability. These 4 things constitute a Pokemon's identity. Let's talk about this individually. First, what are Pokemon types? Pokemon types are a huge part of them. These decide from which types you take less damage and from which types you take more damage. Types are mostly a defensive variant to take account for. They can also be offensive, but let's retake that later. When a type resists other type, it takes half the damage it would take otherwise. And on the other side, when a type is super effective against the other type, it takes twice as much. Here's a chart that I will show later on. You can see to know these resist effective properties. Moving on, what is a move pool? Let's learn the basics first. Pokemon is a turn-based game. In each turn, you can select moves to use, and each move does something different, not always useful, but different. Yes, I'm looking at you, Twin Needle. Moves divide on 2 types. Damaging moves that, guess what? They make damage. Very straightforward. And status moves. These are moves that doesn't make direct damage or at all. First, let's talk about damaging moves. All moves, even status moves, have a type of their own. And accuracy, and accuracy, which is the chance that you hit or miss a move. And this type of moves have a base power. This base power dictates how powerful is an attack. Remember that I told you that types can be offensive? Well, if a Pokemon type matches with the type of the move's base power increases a 50%. Take for example a move that we all know, Thunderbolt, an electric type move with 90 base power and 100 accuracy. If Pikachu uses Thunderbolt on this Rattata, the move is going to have a 50% more base power than if, I don't know, Jigglypuff used it. He let Thunderbolt, I guess. This is called Stab. It stands for Same Type Attack Bonus, and it's the best way to make damage with a Pokemon, using moves of the same types as your mon. Damaging moves types interact with the defensive side of Pokemon types. Using this chart over here, when a move is used to damage a Pokemon, it makes super effective, neutral, or resisted damage according to interaction between them. Also, damaging moves can be physical or special, but that is for later. Now, moving to status moves. These are probably the most important type of moves and are a lot more tricky to understand and explain, because these have no base power, so rather than raw damage, these moves make a unique effect. The best example of a status move is the mother of BGC, the move. Hence, I present you your best bet on winning, Protect. Protect, as the name says it protects from all direct moves against the user the turn it is used, but it can fail if used consecutively. Consecutively. That may seem useless, like, man, you didn't die, but didn't kill either, so that changes nothing. Or use protect, well, I could just attack, and that is wrong. Sure, there are situations where attacking is better than protect, but the tool that is protect is so valuable, and I will talk about that in another occasion. The vast majority of status moves are game-changing moves. It's so wide the effects and things that you can do. There is so much to moves, but I can't explain every single move. So let's move on to what's a move pool. A move pool is the moves that a Pokemon can learn. Each Pokemon can learn only 4 moves at the same time. Having a wide move pool with moves of various types and or good status moves to set up your partners or yourself is what often determines a good Pokemon. Now let's move on to another property of Pokemons, the stats. Every Pokemon species have a set base stats. These then can be trained to be higher or lower depending on what you want your Pokemon to do. A Pokemon's statistics are divided on 6, which are HP, which defines the amount of health a Pokemon have. Attack, it determines how much more damage your physical moves do. Remember physical and special moves? Well, they are correlated to attack or special attack. Defense, it determines how much less damage you take from physical moves. Special attack, it determines how much more damage your special moves do. Special defense, it determines how much less damage you take from special moves. And last but surely not least, speed, it determines who goes first in the turn. A Pokemon base stats often decide if a Pokemon is good or not, and also its role. If you got a Mon with a high base attack and speed, for example, it's surely worth using it as a physical attacker. The ability of a Pokemon is a passive trait that most of the times beneficiates a Pokemon, and in some cases it becomes the reason of why using the Pokemon in the first case. There are also a lot of conditions in the battlefield. I can divide it in 3 different categories: the weather, the terrains, and the one caused by status moves. The last ones I am not going to be explaining in this video, for the sake of the longevity and my sanity editing this. First, I'm explaining the weathers. There are mainly 4 weathers. This can be imposed on the battlefield by using a move or having a Pokemon with an ability that sets that weather enter the field. Every weather lasts 5 turns, or 8 turns if the Pokemon making the weather holds the item to extend said weather. First, harsh sunlight. It causes fire moves to cause 50% more damage, water moves to cause 50% less damage, and some abilities and moves activate or change if the sun is up. Then the rain. It's the opposite of the sun. It causes water moves to deal 50% more and fire to deal 50% less damage. And some different abilities and moves activate or change if the rain is up. Sandstorm. Sandstorm increases rock type's special defense by 50% and deals 1/8 of the max HP to any Pokemon that's not a ground, rock, or steel type at the end of the turn. And some abilities and moves activate or change if the sandstorm is up. Snow. The snow increases ice types defense, physical defense, by 50%. And some abilities and moves activate or change if the snow is up. So remember how I told you that they are mainly for weathers? Well, there are 3 more that are caused only by 3 legendary Pokemon on their strongest version. I'm talking about these 3, the Weather Trio: Mega Rayquaza, Primal Groudon, and Primal Kyogre. These weathers are called primal weathers and are infinite in duration. They only cease when the Pokemon is switched out, KO'd, or overridden only by other primal weather. Primal Groudon sets the extremely harsh sunlight, which does the same as the normal sun, but instead of weakening weather moves by 50%, it nullifies them completely. That's crazy. Primal Kyogre, on the other side, sets the heavy rain, which does the same as the normal rain, but completely nullifies fire moves, in this case. Not so crazy, but still very strong. Mega Rayquaza sets the strong winds, which negates the weaknesses of flying type Pokemon, meaning that if a Pidgey is struck by a thunder, it is going to be neutral if the strong winds are active. I mean, Pidgey is probably dead anyways, but it's gonna be neutral damage. The terrains are like the weather, but only apply their effects on Pokemon grounded, so no benefits for the flying types or levitate moves. Levitate is an ability that makes you immune to ground type moves, but also elevate you from the ground, so what I just explained. The terrains last 5 turns or 8 turns if the Pokemon that sets the terrain holds the item terrain extender. This can only be overridden by certain moves or other terrains. There are in total 4 terrains: electric terrain, misty terrain, grassy terrain, and psychic terrain. The electric terrain causes grounded Pokemon electric type moves to have 30% more base power, and they can't fall asleep. Also, abilities and moves interact with the terrain. The misty terrain helps all dragon moves base power and prevents grounded Pokemon from being affected from non-volatile status conditions and confusion. The misty terrain helps all dragon moves base power and prevents grounded Pokemon from being affected from non-volatile status conditions and confusion. Non-volatile status conditions are sleep, freeze, burn, paralysis, poison, bad poison, and that's it, I think. I might be forgetting something, but I think that they are that. Also, some moves interact with this terrain. The grassy terrain makes grounded Pokemon grass moves deal 30% more damage and heals 1/8 of the Pokemon's max HP at the end of the turn. Also, some abilities and moves interact with the terrain. The psychic terrain boosts grounded Pokemon psychic moves by 30% and protects both sides from targeted priority moves. And you may ask, what is priority? Well, there are some moves that as a secondary effect have an increase or decrease state of priority. Priority is a different dimension apart from speed. No matter the speed of a Pokemon, if an attack has positive priority, it will go first. The higher the priority, the more first they will go, something like that. If 2 Pokemon move with the same priority, the Pokemon with the most speed will move first, kind of a tiebreaker. If a move has negative priority, no matter the speed, it will go last. There are also lesser priority moves, and the less the priority, the slower the move will execute. Now you know the main variables and things about Pokemon, if you didn't already knew them. Next video I'm going to get the interesting themes, like the roles of the Pokemon and the team archetypes. But for now, bye!